Hello, America. All right, well, let's pick this teaching up a little bit more. All right. So now the mass shooter is a sophomore. He spent his freshman year entertaining the idea of killing, reflecting back on the violence in his life, or the non-violence, anyway, whatever it was in his life that caused him to have a taste. In his reflection, things that happened, occurred, instances, events, things that happened in his life that caused him to have a taste, a physical taste, where he was physically manhandled or something, and he got a taste for violence. He nurtured it along until it got to the point where that taste for violence, it was still doing the harm and the hurt. Every time he brought it up and thought about it, it hurt. Now he's 16, he's 17, he's 18 years old. He doesn't have to be, he's not the little fella anymore that's going to be slapped around, touched, beat up, whatever, if that's the case. And especially in his mind, because you have to remember, this whole battle that we're battling is stemming from people's minds. It's not a disease. It's not something that is just beyond fixing. We can fix this thing, but you have to understand that the true enemy that we're battling is the minds of people. So now this freshman has gone into his sophomore year. Now he's a sophomore mass shooter. All of a sudden, he's not going to get picked on anymore. He's not going to get beat up. He's not going to get brutalized. That taste for violence that he was on the receiving end of, hey, hello, no longer is he going to be on the receiving end of it. He's put his foot down, so to speak. He might even still be getting smacked around or bullied or whatever, but to a degree, he's now channeling that back in a different way. Instead of it just funneling into his body, his mind, his spirit, and him getting upset, he's turning it around and beginning to see himself in a way, because he's got an idea to kill, of getting some retribution back on these people that have hurt him or are hurting him. But that's where his mind's at. It's a ping pong game, back and forth. Gets picked on, he turns around and he gets out. Oh, one day I'm going to show you. One day you're not even my dad. One day I'm going to show you. You're just a teacher. You're just a bully. One day I'm going to show you. But so far, that's all it is. It's just entertaining in his mind. But he's turned the table in his mind. In his mind's eye, that taste of violence, he has now turned the table, where he's not on the receiving end of it, but now he's turned the table. And that idea to kill is feeling it along. All of a sudden, he's thinking, man, I can do something about this. And another mass shooter comes on scene. Boom, boom, shoots up this place, shoots up that place. Boom, boom, another mass shooter. It catches his eye. He begins to hear the talking heads droning on and on and on and on. Well, little Billy was this, little Billy was that. He went here, he went there. He had this in his upbringing. His family never realized it, never thought it would happen. And he's sitting back. He was a bad student. He was a good student. He was a this, he was a that. And the droning heads just come talk. If it bleeds, it reads. So they're da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And little Johnny, sophomore mass shooter Johnny, is sitting at home listening to all this, listening to it. And every now and then something is said. It catches a nerve. It catches a neuron. It hooks something in his mind where he says, wow, I have that going on in my life. I was bullied. I was molested. I had bad parenting. I had this. I had that happen to me too. And before you know it, out of the 150 things that the other dead mass shooter had going on in his life, 6 of them apply to little Johnny, the live sophomore mass shooter. So the training begins. Another mass shooter comes along. Boom. Same thing. Because life is repetition. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Droning's on. So all of a sudden, sophomore mass shooter little Johnny, who's been listening to the dronings on of these reporters as they run nonstop about this guy, little mass shooter Johnny, is seeing that, hey, there sure are a lot of similarities between me and that dead mass shooter. There sure are a lot of things that happen in his life that are very similar to what's happened in my life. And this energy that he has turned and tides on now and can channel out, which was just a flirtatious idea to kill, has now been fueled with this taste of violence, and he realizes there were other people that had other similar violence in their life, and they had a taste for violence. And they took that taste for violence. He hasn't quite figured out how to do it yet, but he's watching. He's learning from these mass shooters. And the similarities are so much more than the differences. And he begins to see that, hey, they took and channeled all that. All I can do is do it in my mind. All I can do is just get mad and say no more. I'm not going to take any more of this bullying. I'm not going to take any more of this being slapped around by mom and her boyfriend. I'm not going to take any more of this or that or that or this. All they can do is just entertain in their mind and turn the tide in their mind. But these other mass shooters, they did more than turn the tide. They did more than turn the tide. They took revenge. They made a statement. They spoke to the world through their violence. But he hasn't quite connected the dots that it's going to take to bring him to that point. But that's going to happen soon enough. When he becomes a junior mass shooter, then all of a sudden, he is going to have a seed of violence planted into the soil of his mind that's going to change the whole course of not only his life, but a lot of other people's lives he has yet to even meet. I'll elaborate a little bit more on the sophomore. I gotta get off this phone. Got somebody trying to drive through my bumper at 70 miles an hour. All right, that's enough for now, America.